Wow. Standout memories of playing the Royal Albert Hall. I guess I normally come in underneath. So today's the first time that I've ever sat in the stalls, and it was really emotional for me to be here sitting and looking at the stage, because normally I come up in the elevator and walk behind the scenes. So being out and feeling it, it was pretty emotional for me. I guess the feelings that I experienced is, some of it was sadness because my mom, I imagined her being here, and she's not able to travel after her stroke. So when I played Albert Hall in October 2017, I had the worst rehearsal I've ever had in my life here. And the emotions were overpowering because I knew my mother would never be in, this is my favorite place to play, would ever be here to share it together. And because she can't speak, I couldn't call her up after that terrible rehearsal and say, Mom, I know you always have the words that point me in the direction where I need to go. And so I wept backstage in the little dressing room that I always ask for. They try and give me the big room, but I always want the little one. And I was just crying backstage, and I asked the muses, I said, you know, you have to guide me. And basically they said, well, then you need to leave the daughter that you are, the mother that you are, the wife that you are, safe backstage in this little room that you always ask for, and then you need to go, the performer, and we will come and we'll bring the songs. And it was one of the most magical evenings of my life. Well, I think for that show, my daughter was in the hall that night, and I guess you could say it was a complete circle of life for me, where my mother and father have been to see me, particularly in the 90s. I played Albert Hall first time in 1996. And I was thinking about the first time I played it. And it was, 21 years of life that's happened. I wasn't a mom the first time I played it. And I just thought, God, the Albert Hall is really part of my life. It's sort of like a tattoo. I was speaking with Natalie Dormer earlier, and she was talking about the idea of a role being like a tattoo, or a song being like a tattoo. And I guess the Royal Albert Hall is, in a way, sort of a tattoo of my performing life. This building is, to me, it holds not just the energy of the performers that have come before, but also it's the emotions, the joy and happiness that I feel when I'm here from people over the last many, many years. But also sometimes, the grieving and the ability that music has sometimes to help someone go through a tragedy. And whenever I walk out on that stage, I must tell you, there are times where it's really overwhelming, those emotions that you feel from all the people that have confided into this magical space. The challenge of playing the Albert Hall, I feel, is filling the energy to the very top of the hall. And it is stacked, and you're surrounded by faces and people, particularly when you have a good night and you've sold out, and that's always an amazing feeling. And yet it is sometimes, particularly in sound check for me, because I'm processing. As I said, you come up from underground through the elevator, and it can be intimidating, because also of all the music that's come before you, and you think of all the amazing musicians that are part of a tradition of being here, and it is humbling to know that you're part of this tradition in a way, and so you don't want to bring anything less than your very best. And so the trick is surrendering to the muses and the songs, and at the same time commanding the stage and holding that stage and making sure the energy gets all the way to the back of the room for an hour and a half. I broke out London Girls in 1996 at that show. I was introduced to Chaz and Dave by Mark, who was doing live sound and still is. We got married in 1998. But he had worked for Chaz and Dave. And so he exposed me to some of their music. And I fell in love with London Girls. And I thought, yeah, if I'm going to play it live, this is the place. When I'm in a city and the city's referenced in the song, it might be a little cheesy, but it's something that you just can't avoid, because you think, I know it's an obvious one, but to be able to sing to people in the audience, all the women there, I Want a London Girl, it's, and they sing it with you, and yeah, good night. I didn't really understand the history of the Royal Albert Hall before I came to the UK in 1991. And then, of course, I began to understand how much a part of the culture it is. And then when I heard that I was going to be playing here, it does bowl you over, because, I mean, I've played it several times now over the years, but when you're playing it for the first time, it's a very different experience, because you're processing the nerves, and you have to get those nerves to work for you. And that was the challenge. The first time I walked out on the stage here, I think I just took in a gasp, because it's the energy of the place. On one hand, as I've said, it does feel like it's holding you. And on the other hand, it can be overwhelming, just the emotions. And if you're kind of empathetic at all, sometimes I think you can really tap into the feelings of the audience that's been here for years and years and years and years. So yeah, it's a very unusual place to play. Jules Buckley and the Metropole Orchestra invited me to play with them. So I did. And then we got on so well that we made a record. And then we toured that. And one of the places that I really wanted to play was the Royal Albert Hall with the orchestra. And so we did. And that is different than when I've played with a band in 1998, or with a guitarist in 1996, or when I've played with a string quartet, which was, again, a different energy. And then when you play by yourself, the obvious difference is that when you're doing a one-woman show, it's about filling the room with the energy. When you have a big orchestra, you have the power of the sound, and there's strength in numbers. There's a force that's coming from behind you when you're at your instrument and you feel this amazing sound from the orchestra. So those are the differences. When you're on your own, you really have to think, okay, I've got to fill this room. Today was very emotional because I sat in a box for the first time. And I've never been in the stalls or in the boxes. I just haven't had that opportunity. And so, yeah, I filled up with emotion and looked at the stage and realized, wow, this is a very different perspective. And maybe if I get the opportunity to play here again, I think I might come and sit in the stalls first before I design the show.